Okay. I think we're good this time. I think I see I have some levels. Hopefully not too low, but I think we're good now. Um Apologies for the technical difficulties, but I think I'm back up and running. Sorry about that. Um Not the time of year to be having tech issues with the fantasy playoffs among us, but it happens occasionally. But we're back up and running. Thankfully it was just at the start where I was having issues, so should be good for the rest of the way. Appreciate everybody's patience. Welcome to another episode of Facemask Fantasy. The most important time of the season is upon us. This is why we play the game. Foremost, the fantasy postseason, the playoffs start tonight with Raiders Chargers. That matchup in and of itself is not very interesting, but every game is magnified at this point because even if your opponent has a kicker or a defense in the game, you're going to have at least one eye on things because it's officially win or go home. There might be some larger leagues, maybe with more teams that make the playoffs that maybe started last week, or maybe smaller or more competitive leagues only start, they don't start until next week. But for the vast majority of leagues, it is the postseason, it is the fantasy playoffs, it is win or go home. And it all starts tonight. Um, the first thing I'll do is just go over thoughts on players in this game. Just a general thought process on what the potential outlook is for guys going tonight between the Raiders and the Chargers. We'll go over injury reports. We now have 2 days worth of injury reports, so that's shedding some light on some availability for this week. Obviously, nothing is finalized at this point for a few players, but we've got more information than we did at the start of the week, so we can really start to look at start-sit questions. Obviously, ones that pertain to this evening, but for Saturday, and Sunday as well. There are Saturday games this week. The fantasy playoffs are at all times this weekend, so just be prepared. I'll go live earlier on Saturday, probably around 11 a.m. Eastern, so earlier than usual with the games being Saturday. So, we'll make sure to get some FaceTime in each day before the games kick off to talk shop. But for now, I'll briefly go over players in tonight's game, and then we'll look at injuries, and then we'll start getting into questions. This game in particular, there are some things to kind of sift through. We'll start with the obvious. You're playing Austin Eckler and you're playing Davante Adams. Eckler had been on a bit of a kind of downward trend the previous 3 games before this past weekend. He picked it back up. I think he had 18 or so half PPR points, scored a touchdown late in the game. Saw his receiving role increase when Easton Stick went into the game. No Keenan Allen tonight. Got to imagine Eckler sees a significant chunk of the pass attempts. Probably a lot of checkdowns coming from Easton Stick tonight. Eckler's a must start and gave you plenty of confidence to do just that this past Sunday. Same with Davante Adams. He hasn't been, at least consistently, the Davante Adams of old, but this is a great matchup. No Josh Jacobs for the Raiders tonight, or I don't believe he's officially been ruled out, but by every indication, Josh Jacobs is not going to play or not expected to play. So the Raiders have no choice. They have to find ways to get the ball to Davante Adams. If it means throwing it to him 15 times, he doesn't profile as a receiver to take end arounds or anything like that. But I wouldn't rule anything out at this point. Raiders just trying to get their best offensive player involved and as involved as possible. It might not be pretty. The numbers might not be what we've come to hope for and expect from Davante Adams on a week-to-week basis, but you're firing him up. This is a great matchup, and I mean, they're going to need to find at least 12 to 15 opportunities for him if they want to compete in this game. And if they want to win this game outright, which they should, they're at home. So you fire up Eckler, you fire up Devontae Adams. Everybody else is an extreme question mark at best, and that includes Zamir White, again, who will get his first start tonight. Josh Jacobs is expected to get his first start tonight. Josh Jacobs not expected to play. So hopefully you have alternate plans if you have Josh Jacobs or a bye week. That'd be even better. But hopefully you have an alternate plan to Josh Jacobs. He will likely not go tonight. It's not expected at this point. Zamir White and Amir Abdullah will split backfield opportunities. Zamir White will get the, he'll get the rushing attempts. Abdullah will get the third down snaps and hurry up offense, pass catching opportunities. Their roles are split. I don't trust either one. It's a good matchup by the numbers. Like the Chargers can be had on the ground. But with this offense and these circumstances, especially because we haven't really seen Zamir White develop any type of role as a complement to Josh Jacobs, that has not happened. It's not like the same as what's happening in Tennessee, like where Derrick Henry is still doing his thing, but Tajay Spears is very much involved. It's not that. I mean, Zamir White has seen less than 20% of the snaps in all but one game this year. He doesn't have a role. And so out of necessity, he's going to get an opportunity tonight. It's hard to move him that far up the rankings because we just really haven't seen anything from him. So I'm not really advocating for Zamir White tonight. I can't, in good conscience, suggest Amir Abdullah either. Like last week with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon, I was kind of having similar vibes as far as how this backfield would shake out. But I was saying, like, if there was a preference to be had here, it's McKinnon because they're playing the Bills and it's Patrick Mahomes. And given those circumstances, that specific instance, I felt okay about suggesting, Jerick McKinnon as a desperation play or an emergency play. I don't feel the same about Amir Abdullah here. He might get some volume, but like, what is this game on a Thursday night between two backup quarterbacks going to be? Like, I know we were singing the same tune last week about Steelers Patriots, and it turned out to be, there were a ton of points scored. But does lightning strike twice? I don't know. I don't know how much confidence I have and how many scoring opportunities either team is going to have. If you want to do anything, the Raiders defense is a trendy pickup. Just because of the lack of scoring that is expected here. That's a little dangerous against a guy who is, as talented as Austin Eckler is, but the rest of that Chargers offense is in shambles. So you can understand the thought process there. Outside of that, maybe Jacoby Myers is a desperation play. Even in super flex leagues, Aiden O'Connell, Easton Stick are incredibly dicey plays at best. It's tough to feel good about anybody here other than the obvious guys, and that's Austin Eckler and Devontae Adams. So in general, I'm going to have a hard time advocating for Zamir White in any start-sit questions that involve Zamir White unless your other alternatives are other desperation plays. If anybody is a regular or a guy that has been at least a hold on your bench for the past, month or to 6 weeks, if not longer, there's probably not going to be too many guys that I like, Zamir White more than, even though he's about to get an increased opportunity. So that's where I'm at with this game tonight. So, if you're unclear on what to do with your defense, you could roll the dice on the Raiders. They're not great, but they got a great matchup now. Easton Stick is getting a start on a short week on the road, and he doesn't have Keenan Allen. There are worse rolls of the dice. outside of that, it's tough to feel good about anybody. And I do believe it looks like Josh Jacobs has officially been ruled out. Um, so again, expanded opportunity for Zamir White, but I can't bring myself to suggest him over anybody unless it's another desperation play. Okay, let's get to the most recent injury updates as of today. We'll go through that. Um, the purpose of doing this, you already know, obviously, outside of um, just a thought process on the injury itself and what the impact is, you know, it potentially answers some questions as well. And then I will get to any questions that are not answered from the injury report review. We'll kick it off with Darren Waller, designated to return from injured reserve. I believe he practiced in a limited fashion today. I don't know that I necessarily think he'll play this week. Hopefully, that's nothing more than a desperation option if he's even able to go. Isaiah Pacheco won't practice, so it's looking like another week of Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon. In this matchup, I mean, on the road against the Patriots aren't good, but their defense is still solid, and the Chiefs' offense is, a little like pulling teeth right now. I mean, you've got Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice has emerged, but this is an offense that is struggling a little bit more than we're used to with Patrick Mahomes under center, and the Patriots are the worst matchup in the league by the numbers for opposing running backs. I can advise on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, Jerick McKinnon should get some pass catching opportunities, but he got the touchdown at home last week. I don't know that I would roll the risk of that happening again this week. I don't feel as strongly about that. I would be looking to avoid both guys. I don't want to play Clyde against the Patriots. I don't want to play McKinnon against the Patriots. CJ Stroud remains in concussion protocol. And on top of that, Nico Collins has not practiced for 2 straight days after coming back or after having missed most of last week's game due to the calf strain. Stroud, on the other hand, is in concussion protocol. We're looking at a game where the Texans are starting Davis Mills, and they'll be playing Noah Brown and Robert Woods at wide receiver. It could be a decent week to stream the Titans defense. It could be a decent week to stream the Titans defense. I mean, if Stroud's in concussion protocol, hasn't practiced for 2 straight days, I'd put his chances at playing in this game at about, I would say, less than 5%. I mean, if it's Davis Mills and Robert Woods and Noah Brown, I mean, Dalton Schultz, I think, is expected back. So that's a boost for them on offense. But you're down your starting quarterback. You're down to your wide receivers 3 and 4. Might be a good time to stream the Titans defense, who are probably feeling themselves. Maybe that team as a whole has a little bit of momentum after upsetting the Dolphins on Monday night. Just a thought there. A couple of running backs officially ruled out, but no surprises. Jonathan Taylor for the Colts is out against the Steelers. Alexander Mattison is ruled out for the Vikings against the Bengals. Both of those games are on Saturday, so it'll be another week of starting Zach Moss for the Colts. It'll be I believe Ty Chandler's first career start. Moss has been a guy that I have liked the past couple of weeks because of the volume, just because of the opportunity. And the volume has been there. What hasn't been there is the production, the results with Zach Moss. They are at home, so I'm okay with going back to the well with him. I believe the past 2 games were road games. And as we know, road games are a little more finicky on a per game basis than home games are. Just double checking that. Yeah, 2 straight road games. So one was a division game. One was a game that kind of got away from the Titans in Cincinnati. So Moss didn't have the numbers at the end of the day, but the snaps were there. 95% of the snaps week 13, 85% of the snaps week 14. Um, he is the dude for the Colts when Jonathan Taylor is out. Um, now he's at home, and it's a slightly, I mean, it's not a great matchup by the numbers against Pittsburgh, but they're more middle of the pack than they are, you know, they're more good than great. They're not great. And at home, Moss might be able to actually take advantage of some volume there. As for Ty Chandler, it's a really good spot if if you desperately need a running back. If you were able to successfully get him off waivers, somebody may have dropped him this past week prior to Madison's injury. He could have been a drop. If you were able to get him off waivers, or whether you were stashing him or holding him, obviously this is an opportunity where maybe you were waiting for with a guy like him. It's a good spot. I don't know what this Vikings offense is going to look like with their fourth quarterback on the season, with Nick Mullins running things. So it's hard to, really endorse Ty Chandler, but it's a really good matchup. And if Justin Jefferson plays, which I think he's trending towards, I mean, that opens everything else up for everybody. So he's on the RB3. I'd say he's more on the RB3 roadmap than the RB2 roadmap, but there's upside there. Maybe low end RB2 for Ty Chandler. DJ Moore limited in practice, which is good news. He did not practice on Wednesday, so looking like this could just be maintenance. Although going from no practice to limited practice is still something that's worth keeping an eye on, worth monitoring for Friday. If DJ Moore gets 2 back-to-back limited practices in, you probably feel good about his opportunity, chance to play on Sunday against the Browns, and the Bears are going to need him. That's a tougher matchup. They're not as dominant, the Browns are, as they were in the middle of the season. They're still good, but they haven't been as dominant recently. So it is a gettable spot for, say, Justin Fields, but he's going to need DJ Moore for that to happen. So we'll keep an eye on him. Deontay Johnson's off the injury report. Great. He's a wide receiver 3. Geno Smith reportedly practiced today, so good news for the Seahawks offense, I guess. Maybe not DK Metcalf. Drew Lock has eyes for DK Metcalf, that's for sure. Chris Olave, back-to-back missed practices, so we might be needing to make other plans with Chris Olave. He might not be able to go. Same for A.J. Dillon. He broke his thumb in the Packers' loss to the Giants on Monday night. Back-to-back missed practices for him. Aaron Jones told reporters earlier today he's confident in a return. So Aaron Jones, if A.J. Dillon can't play, Aaron Jones is on the roadmap, but it's been a tough season between injuries and just some lackluster performances this year from Aaron Jones. It has not been his best season. It's tough to endorse him as anything more than an RB3 with volume, even though it's a decent matchup at home. We haven't seen Aaron Jones in 3 weeks? We haven't seen Aaron Jones for 3 weeks, and the 5 games prior to that, he only had 1 RB1 performance. The rest were, at best, RB3 or worse. So it's tough to endorse Aaron Jones in his first game back, even if A.J. Dillon has to miss the game. Christian Watson didn't practice. This is not a bad spot for Jayden Reed. Actually, it's quite a good spot for Jayden Reed. Romeo Doubs is a touchdown or bust flex play, but this is a good matchup, and maybe he gets some more opportunities without with Watson potentially out for another week. Tyreek Hill did not practice Thursday. That's back-to-back missed practices for Tyreek. Um, Generally speaking, not a good sign. That typically indicates that a player is out. Tyreek did return to the game on Monday night after missing probably about 2/3 of it after the injury. Didn't stayed out for the rest of the first half. After that, did not go into the game well into the second half. It wasn't until the Dolphins had a deficit that they were trailing that they put Tyreek back in. So, this could be them just not wanting to push it. Maybe Tyreek's injury isn't long term, but there's a decent chance, I would say, at this point that he does not suit up. Tough break for anybody who has Tyreek Hill and doesn't have a bye week. Hopefully he was, strong enough to get your team a bye week. But if he's on your team and you didn't get the bye week, you're going to be without. It doesn't look like, at least right now, that you're going to have one of your heavy hitters, which is a tough blow. We'll see what happens with Friday practice. Same with Devon Achane, did not practice on Thursday. I mean, his availability seems to be up and down. We'll see if he can get again, like Tyreek, we'll see if Achane can get a practice in on Friday. I think those are the big ones. Ramondre Stevenson out. I don't expect to see him for the rest of the season. Marquise Brown limited in practice. Arizona has San Francisco. Not a bad spot by the numbers. And Arizona will have to throw the ball. They're likely going to be losing that game. So they'll be throwing at home coming out of their bye week. Marquise Brown is a decent wide receiver 3 option for you. Okay, those are the injury updates. I'll now get to questions. As y'all know, or whether you're new or whether you've been around the block, I do get to my members first. That is a perk of the channel, or one of the perks of the channel is members jump the line. If you're feeling generous enough to offer a super, you don't have to, but if you do, that would be a line jumper as well. I will get to everybody else after that, so I just ask for some patience. And if you guys are enjoying, your time in here hanging out, appreciate the engagement, the conversation. I just ask that you like the stream for algorithm purposes. Appreciate that in advance. What's going on, Rojo? Good to see you, dude. Bro, you have Hurts. You have Jalen Hurts. I know he's banged up right now, but at least he's going to play. But yeah, losing Herbert and Burrow is a tough break. Not two guys that you expect, generally, like just by the numbers, by the averages, by law of averages, and style of play and all that stuff. Those are two guys that you figure if there's anybody who's higher risk for injury, it's Hurts with how much he runs. But Hurts has typically been the most durable, certainly over Burrow. Wild. You at least have Hurts. Puka's a good option, even though, yeah, you prefer to play a quarterback. But hey, man, we'll see what happens. It's a great matchup for the Rams. Great matchup for the Rams receivers. As far as, Javonte Williams, Austin Eckler, all these guys. So I just mentioned Achane has not practiced for back-to-back days. That automatically kind of rules him out for me here, given your other options. Eckler is tougher to trust, but I think you got to go back to him. I got to imagine he gets a ton of pass catching work tonight, because who else is Easton Stick going to throw the football to? Keenan Allen's out. Josh Palmer, I think, is back. So that, that helps. They do get one guy back. They get Josh Palmer. They'll utilize Gerald Everett. They'll utilize Quentin Johnston, who had a nice game last week. He caught the ball. I'm not trying to be a completely facetious when I say that, but yeah, he didn't drop the ball in terrible spots. He caught it this time. So, I guess they have those guys, but you got to give them a healthy dose of Austin Eckler tonight, running it and catching it. So I think you got to go Eckler. I would go Montgomery at home. Um, the Lions are favored in that game. I like both of the running backs in that game. The line, especially at home, for me, the Lions running backs are starts. Um, Maybe I like Gibbs a little bit more on the road. Just what expected volume as a pass catcher is maybe higher on the road than at home. But like he's so electric, it doesn't matter. I like both of those guys pretty much no matter the situation. But Montgomery at home, I feel really strongly about. James Cook's got a tough matchup against the Cowboys. Javonte has a tough matchup by the numbers against the Lions. Hasn't Cook and then DeAndre Swift. I mean, I guess I like him better because of the matchup. I'll say that the matchup is great. The Seahawks give up a lot of production to opposing running backs. On the season, they're a top five. On the season, they are a top 5 matchup for opposing running backs. And just in the last 4 weeks, they're still in the top 8. So it's a great matchup. I would go Montgomery. I would go Eckler. For me, it's between James Cook and Swift for me. I know Javonte scored last week, and he's been getting more opportunities recently, but I don't know. Maybe I struggle to trust him any given week. I just don't know when Jaleel McLaughlin is gonna, or Samaje Perine, who I think just got taken off the injury report, is gonna like usurp him at a critical pass catching spot or a critical pass catching opportunity. James Cook, meanwhile, tough matchup against the Cowboys. But the Bills have caught a little bit of fire, having beaten the Chiefs on the road. Cook got another 15 opportunities last week against the Chiefs and did a great job. 10 for 58 on the ground. Excellent. 5 for 83 through the air and a touchdown. Beautiful. Swift in a great matchup is you feel better about the matchup by far as it pertains to Swift, but I mean the opportunities haven't been there like they have for Cook, and so the production hasn't been there. Swift hasn't delivered a solid performance since week 11 against those Chiefs. Now, maybe he gets more opportunities in a great matchup, but if you wanted to go the hot hand approach, the answer is James Cook. I think even in a bad matchup at home, I got to imagine the Bills are playing with some momentum that, they got to be feeling good about themselves. They got to run the gauntlet to make the playoffs. And they cleared the first hurdle. They beat the Chiefs in Kansas City. Like that had to feel good. Now they get to go home. They're playing another really good team, one of the best, in the Cowboys, but they're at home and they get to defend home turf. I mean, I think I would go Cook. The Eagles have more question marks right now. And even though the matchup is really good for DeAndre Swift, I think, I'll take the Bills running back who is dominating touches next to Josh Allen. I think that's where I'm going. Eckler, Montgomery, Cook. That is my answer. Okay, back up to the top. Astro, thanks for reposting. Sorry about the old technical difficulties. Yeah, this looks good. Zach Moss over James Cook is the one thing that I'm wrestling with. I think going back to Moss is fine. He's going to get volume, and at home, he should fare better at home with the volume that we're expecting him to get. That being said, James Cook is his team's natural regular starter, I might prefer to bet on the talent and the better offense. I might go Cook over Moss. I do like Moss's opportunity. I'm okay with going back to the well with Zach Moss if you need to this week. But James Cook is in a better offense. He's guaranteed the opportunities because we've seen it. We've seen it come to fruition since Ken Dorsey got fired. James Cook had 15 touches last week. In week 12, he had 22. In week 11, he had 20. You know, since they moved on from Ken Dorsey, James Cook is getting the football. I would think that continues. That would be the one thing. I would probably go Cook over Moss. Um, two good options. Two good options, but I'll take the guy who is his team's actual starter over the guy who is his team's de facto starter, especially when the regular starter is in the better offense. I think I would go Cook over Moss. Everything else looks good. Down to Odell and Hollywood. Okay, well, they're good matchups. They're good matchups. So, I don't know. Is Romeo Dubs out there by any chance? You could consider him. Although I guess Odell and Hollywood might be just better options than that guy. See what happens. They're flex plays. You just need them to hit. You just need them to boom. I mean, Hollywood's should get pretty good volume. Game script is clearly should clearly favor the Cardinals to throw the football. And they're at home, so we'll see. Full PPR, those to start those running backs. Well, Saquon and Kyren Williams are auto starts. You're starting Saquon, you're starting Kyren Williams. Slam dunks. Between Ezekiel Elliott and James Cook, that's the question. There's not going to be any Ramondre Stevenson once again, and Zeke turned back the clock last week against the Steelers. Had a great game on Thursday night against Pittsburgh. So he'll dominate the touches once again against Kansas City. James Cook, he is his, again, team's regular starter, natural starter, and it's a much better offense. I always preach, I have been preaching, if anybody has caught this, I just tend to favor more guys on good offenses and in good situations over guys that are in not so good offenses. The Bills are a significantly more superior offense to the New England Patriots. Zeke might get his, and at home, he could score again, but this is a tougher matchup against Kansas City. James Cook at this stage in his career is a more dynamic, more explosive player than Ezekiel Elliott. I think I would go Cook. Especially, and in full PPR, Cook is more of a pass catcher than Zeke. Zeke is not a scrub as a pass catcher, but, with Josh Allen, I feel better about Cook in PPR than Zeke. If it was standard, I might say Zeke, but it's full PPR. Give me Saquon, give me Kyren Williams, give me James Cook. Xavier, what's going on, man? Good to see you, dude. Looks like you made playoffs. If you're in here, congratulations. Let's get this dub. Zamir White, Higgins. You also have Chase. Stevenson didn't practice for a second straight day. I don't think he's going to play. Odell, Cooks, Ty Chandler. Is this a start one? If it's a start one, and if it's and full or half PPR, that would also be good here. I'm not crazy about Zamir White tonight. I'm just not. He's not a dude who typically has a role in the Raiders offense when Josh Jacobs is healthy. Like, not like he's not a change of pace guy. Like, Jacobs doesn't come off the field, to his credit, but there's a lot of really good running backs in the NFL that are in committees. Um, like Derrick Henry is in a committee with Tajay Spears. Bijan Robinson is in a committee with Tyler Algier. Kenneth Walker is in a committee with Zach Charbonnet. Like, I could keep going. There's only a handful of bell cows. Jacobs is one of them, but if there's talent on an offense, the team is going to use him. And I'm not trying to slander Zamir White. He just doesn't have a role. So I don't feel great about him just because of his expanded opportunity. I think Amir Abdul is going to mix in plenty enough where both dudes are going to be a headache. And I know the matchup is great. I'm not feeling Zamir White. I'm just not. Ty Chandler is maybe the guy I would consider here with Madison out. The only other guy who has an argument is T. Higgins. And he showed signs of life last week. This is a tougher matchup. The Vikings have been pretty stingy on defense recently. In fact, they're a bottom 6 matchup for opposing wide receivers. And obviously, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are not just any random wide receiver duo or tandem, but it has not been a good season for Higgins. It's been pretty much a lost season for T. Higgins. He doesn't have Joe Burrow. He had a potential touchdown, but it was called back last week, and it was his own fault. It was OPI. It wasn't like he made a great play and there was a penalty away from the play that wouldn't have impacted his, like, a catch or whatever. Like, Higgins pushed off for an OPI, so yeah, he got into the end zone, but he committed a foul to secure the catch. So it's like I can't give that to him in a glass half full way of looking at it. Beckham and Cooks are upside plays, but their floors are low. I would say Ty Chandler. I would go Ty Chandler. And it's half, so even more reason for me to want to go to a running back over a wide receiver. The only guy here is T. Higgins, but again, like, the only thing T. Higgins has going for himself at this point is that we drafted him high. We drafted him in the late second, early third round. That's all we have from him right now, though. And at this point in the season, I can't use that anymore I think he's only had 2 wide receiver 1 weeks. And they were both a long time ago. I would go Chandler. It's a good matchup against the Bengals. He should get some decent volume with Madison out. I mean, they're down to Ty Chandler and Kene Nwangwu, who is a special teamer. I got to think Ty Chandler gets 75% of the snaps. Yeah, I would go Chandler. I would play Chandler. That's where I would go. But best of luck. Congrats on making the playoffs. Congrats to everybody on making the playoffs. I don't know how many, if this is 1 league or 2 leagues, but if anybody wants to, I did this on Tuesday. If you weren't here Tuesday, if you want to, talk your shit. How'd you get it? How many teams did you get in? What's your outlook? What's your seed? What's your matchup look like? Yeah. We can make this story time if y'all want to. But yes, congrats again for everybody who's made the playoffs. That by itself is an accomplishment, regardless of what happens this week. Where am I at? Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, or Saquon? Saquon. Saquon is a top 3 play this week. It's not a great matchup for the Giants wide receivers. The Saints are pretty good against outside wide receivers on the season. They are less good at stopping the run, and Saquon had 2 more touchdowns last week. I know it's a road game, but Saquon is an elite play this week. You got to fire up Saquon. If you can only play one, obviously Adams and Wilson are regularly great plays, but if you can only play one of those 3 guys, you have to play Saquon. I just got a notification from Underdog that it is a Khalil Mack revenge game tonight. So if any of you play player props, go ahead and I don't know what I don't know if what the line is at for Khalil Mack to get a sack, but if it's only 0.5, you might want to hit that over. Just food for thought. Is it on Underdog? It is. Oh, three. Really? They only have 3.5 tackles plus assists as his line. They don't have like a half for a sack. Come on now. Because they know that would cash. That's why. That's why. Okay, what defense do I go with? All good options. Chiefs against the Patriots is a great option. The Broncos are on the road against Detroit. So I saw the Broncos. I like the Broncos for week 16 and week 17. I'm not as much on the road against Detroit. I don't like them as much. They're playing well, and the Lions are kind of reeling a little bit, but I don't think I would play I don't think I would play the Broncos on the road here. Now, the Browns against the Bears, that one is more intriguing. Did Denzel Ward return to practice this week? I think he did. I think he did. He practiced in a limited capacity yesterday. I haven't seen if he practiced today, but that's a big boost for Cleveland at home. Both units, the Chiefs and the Browns, are very good. On a per week basis, it's a coin flip between the two. If they're getting Denzel Ward back at home against Chicago with DJ Moore limited in practice with an ankle injury, I think I would incline to go Cleveland. Now, they are playing, they're going against Justin Fields. The Chiefs are going against Bailey Zappi. So advantage Chiefs in that regard. But the Chiefs, the Chiefs are on the road. Things are a little bit weirder on the road, or can tend to be a little bit weirder on the road. I don't think the Chiefs are going to lose this game to New England, but I think the Browns at home, getting one of their best players back. Yes, they're going up against a better quarterback in Justin Fields, but the Bears as an offense are still not, all the way there as being are they even middle of the pack? I mean, Justin Fields is showing signs of life, but as an offense as a whole, are they even middle of the pack? I think I would slightly lean Cleveland. I would slightly lean Cleveland. I like Denver for the next couple weeks, though, for what it's worth. Drop Watson for Zay Jones. If you desperately need a guy this week and you don't have an IR spot, then sure. Yeah, I mean, it's do or die time. At this point, if there's a guy who you need who can potentially help you now, I mean, now's the time. It hurts, but in certain scenarios, if you don't have space on IR, or you don't have an IR spot in general, I mean, now's the time to drop players who cannot help you this week. You can't worry about next week because you got to get to next week first. So yeah, I mean, if Watson's shaping up to miss the game, I think that's the most recent update. I know he didn't practice today. Unlikely to practice Friday. That would be an indication that he's probably not going to play on Sunday. We obviously didn't see him last week. Yeah, I mean, if you need somebody like Zay, then sure. And then is that Justin Jefferson? If Justin Jefferson is in the lineup, then he's in your starting lineup. Yes. We don't have a choice. This is Justin Jefferson we're talking about. Yeah. If you have him, you have to play him. You have to. Dak or Lamar? Dak is on the road against Buffalo. Lamar is on the road against Jacksonville. Lamar popped last week against the Rams in bad weather. Dak was a consensus ranked ahead of Lamar last week. That did not come to fruition. Lamar played much better. Dak didn't need to do as much. Over the past 4 weeks, Jacksonville is giving up the third most points to opposing quarterbacks. So advantage Lamar as far as the matchup. The Bills are a little bit more middle of the pack. And at home, obviously, they're going to naturally be a little bit tougher, or you would think. I would probably slightly lean Lamar. Dak is going to have to probably do more as a passer in this game. This could be a shootout. There could be a lot of points. There could be a lot of points put on the board in this game between the Bills and the Cowboys. But the, expected pace of play is, I'm just pulling these numbers from Graham Barfield. Baltimore and Jacksonville are not far behind. Cowboys, Bills are first in pace, so we're expecting points to be scored in that game. Jaguars, Ravens is third on the slate as far as expected pace of play, which, faster offense, more plays, more scores, math. I would give the slightest of nods to Lamar Jackson. Both guys are playing great. Both guys play for top teams in their conference. Dak has an elite collection of weapons and has been throwing the ball incredibly well this year. Lamar has been making an MVP case, and as we know, is one of the elite rushing quarterbacks in the NFL. It's a coin flip. It's a true coin flip. I would give the slightest of nods to Lamar Jackson. Xavier, I'm sorry about that 7th place team, bro. I hate when that happens. It's like I put a good team together. I just got screwed by the luck of the draw. That's the most frustrating part of fantasy, when you get everybody's best. You get everybody's best shot. One year it just seems to happen, right? You built a good team, but for 1 week, your one opponent was better than you. It's so annoying. You should have made it. It didn't quite work out that way. I know that you probably don't want to hear it right now, but if you scored the most points, you built a really good team. You did it right. You just got screwed by the luck of the draw. But you got one. We got one. And so 1 is better than 0. Zamir over-under, 20 touches, 20 total touches, 16 carries, 4 targets. I might take the under on the carries. 4 targets, maybe. 4 catches, no way. I think Amir Abdullah is going to be in there plenty. I would probably take, again, I'm just being pessimistic, I guess, on Zamir White. I'm not feeling Zamir White tonight. I think I would take the under on both of those. Under on 16 carries, under on 4 targets. I think Amir Abdullah is going to be the guy in third down, pass catching opportunities, hurry up offense. White, they might try to run the ball a good amount, but with a healthy Davante Adams, I got to think that's the focal point of the Raiders offense tonight. They may not want to throw the ball a ton, but you don't have much else to turn to on this offense. Michael Mayer is still a part-time player finding his way. Jacoby Myers is an up-and-down wide receiver too. I got to think that the focal point is getting Davante Adams the ball as much as possible tonight. Maybe 10 or 12 carries for Zamir White. 16 feels like a lot. I know the Raiders want to run, but Yeah, I have a hard time seeing I have a hard time seeing over 16 carries. 4 targets, maybe. 16 carries, that's a tough sell for me. Njoku or McBride? That's a good one. Njoku went ballistic last week. McBride's coming out of his bye week and has been really good. Bears have been pretty tough recently in general on defense. 49ers are middle of the pack against opposing tight ends. Um, is Njoku on the injury report? I know he occasionally is. Did not practice on Thursday, but this was rest related. So it sounds like Njoku is going to be fine. Njoku popped last week. 6 catches, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 8 catches for 86 yards the previous 2 weeks combined. McBride, again, did not play last week. He was on his bye. Week 13, he had 8 for 89 and 1. Week 12, or 1 touchdown. Week 12, he had 7 for 60. Week 11, not great. 5 for 43. Njoku was better that day. 7 for 56. But in week 10, prior to that, 8 catches for 131 yards for Trey McBride. 6 catches, 58 yards for David Njoku. Both are mainstays, regular, focal points of their offense. And Njoku probably gets a boost with Flacco. I would go McBride. I just think he has more upside. At this stage in their careers, Kyler is a more dynamic quarterback than Joe Flacco. That doesn't necessarily mean anything for a tight end's production, but I'll take what I think is stronger upside in Trey McBride than David Njoku. I'll go McBride. Your opponent has Josh Jacobs. Hey man, it's not your responsibility. If you were the commissioner, you might have an obligation to do that. If it's a consolation game and somebody's not starting it, then it's just like, okay, whatever. But if it's a playoff game, unless you're the commissioner, you are not obligated to say anything. The onus is on the opponent to, this is the most important time of the season. You have to be on top of your shit. So that's not on you. That's not on you. As for if you go to heaven or not, there are other factors at play here. I can't help with that one. But it's not your responsibility to tell your opponent in a playoff game unless you're the commissioner. Then it's like, okay, now you gotta grapple with integrity and all that nonsense. London or Rashee Rice in full PPR? I don't trust Drake London on the road. And that's pretty much all it comes down to. I think I would go Rashee Rice. It's a great matchup. But Rice's involvement has gone all the way up. This is not it's not a great matchup by the numbers because the Panthers are so easily run on, which the Falcons want to do a million times over any given game, any given week. London comes through at home and he doesn't on the road. That's literally what it comes down to. London's best performance on the road came in week 4 against the Jaguars when he caught 3 balls for 28 yards and a touchdown. So he bailed you out with a touchdown to finish with 10 half PPR points. I guess about 12 full PPR points. That is his best performance on the road this season from a fantasy production perspective. It's Rashee Rice. London is great at home, so start him next week, week 16. He's great at home. He cannot be trusted on the road. That's what it comes down to. Since he's on the road this week, it's Rashee Rice for me. I'm playing Rashee Rice. I don't like Drake London in general this week, unless you are down to, you have no other options. Zamir White or Drake London. Shit, what would I do in that situation? I guess I would go London, but I don't feel great about it. London or T. Higgins, I guess I would go London. London or Rashee Rice, I'll take Rice. He's the only consistent wide receiver that Kansas City has. And I'm not talking about Travis Kelce. He's a tight end. Rice. I don't want to play Drake London on the road. Don't want to play him on the road. Odds Tyreek plays this week. It doesn't feel great. And I see you're dealing with some banged up guys. Again, Tyreek missed a sizable chunk of the Monday night game against the Titans after he suffered the injury. He didn't return to the field until well after halftime, well into the second half. It was only until the Dolphins started trailing did they put Tyreek Hill back in. It's a good sign that he was able to do that. It's not a good sign that he missed practice back-to-back days. I got to think overall Tyreek is fine, but out of an extreme abundance of caution, the Dolphins might sit him this week. They play the Jets at home, who, I guess credit to the Jets. They played very well last week against Houston. They scored, I think, 27 points, maybe 30. So they're coming in here with a little bit of feistiness, I guess. Zach Wilson has not been awful the past couple of weeks. So it'll be a bit of a challenging situation for the Dolphins, but they should bounce back and win this game. I would think that they can do this without Tyreek Hill. And they may run that risk. They may roll those dice. It wouldn't surprise me if Tyreek sat this week, but he could be back next week. Aaron Jones at least is reportedly he's confident that he's going to return. I don't feel great about him, but at least it's you're likely to have him this week if you need him. Raheem Mostert returned to practice today, so I think he's fine. Devon Achane did not practice, so you might be getting a bump from Mostert. And DJ Moore returned to practice as well. The Bears are going to need him against Cleveland, although that's a tough spot for him against Denzel Ward, but you got to play DJ Moore if he goes. But it feels like Tyreek Hill could rest 1 week. It's not confirmed. We'll see what happens on Friday. That will be telling whether he practices or not. Let's see. Raiders defense tonight or the Ravens defense against Jacksonville. The Ravens are obviously the much better unit. It's a slightly tougher spot on the road against Jacksonville. Obviously, the Raiders are a really trendy pick tonight with, no Justin Herbert, no Keenan Allen. It's pretty much Austin Eckler and a bag of chips for the Chargers offense tonight. So the Raiders are going to be a trendy pick at home. They should be okay. It's just tough to feel. It's tough to truly endorse a unit like the Raiders when, the Ravens as a unit, regardless of their opponent, they're a much better team. Yeah. Um, that's tough. I might get burned for this. I might actually advise for rocking with the team that got you to where you are and rock with Baltimore. It's probably more of a safe play. If you think you need to be the aggressive play is the Raiders. The aggressive play is the Raiders. And they could do fine against Easton Stick. He's getting, I think, his first career start. Short week. Doesn't have Keenan Allen. Barely has much to work with at wide receiver. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence poses a much more of a challenge for any defense than Easton Stick does. But Baltimore is just good. They are 10-3 for a reason. If they can go anywhere and win a game. That includes against Jacksonville, who has lost a couple games straight. They had a valiant effort at a comeback last week against Cleveland, but they ultimately fell short. And before that, they lost at home to Cincinnati with Jake Browning. So they are certainly like a beatable team. They may score points, but Baltimore's got the defense to make plays regardless. I think I give the slight nod to the Ravens. The Raiders are an aggressive play. You could swing for the fences with them. You could swing for the fences with the Raiders, but I think I would just rock with the team that got you here, and that's Baltimore. I think I would go with the team that got you here. I would go with the Ravens. What's going on, Crumbly Heads? Good to see you, man. We need two between Lockett, Sutton, Mixon, and Eckler. Okay. This is half PPR, right? I'm pretty sure it's half PPR. I would go Mixon. It's a tough matchup, but I think you need to. The Bengals are doing pretty well on offense right now. The Vikings have been good on defense, but I think I got to rock with Mixon. Give me my bell cow running back in a must win spot. Um, I have a hard time trusting Lockett. Sutton should be good. Even though it's a tough spot. It's a tough matchup. By the numbers, the Lions are gettable by opposing wide receivers, but um, a little dicier on the road. Eckler tonight gets a middle of the pack Raiders squad. Again, they are a gettable defense for opposing running backs. I got to think he gets a lot of pass catching opportunities tonight. I think I would go with your running backs. I know that Eckler is a little dicier with the backup quarterback, but Easton Stick is probably going to check the ball down to Austin Eckler. I would think a lot. I got to imagine Eckler is going to see a big receiving workload. No Keenan Allen. We obviously know Mike Williams is gone. I mean, we're down to Josh Palmer, I think, is back, so that's good for the Chargers. But we're down to Palmer, Gerald Everett, and Quentin Johnston, whatever he can give them. He had a nice game last game. I got to think Eckler catches a lot of balls tonight. I would go with your running backs. I don't trust Lockett. Sutton is good, has had a great season. But I think I got to go with your running backs. I think the targets for Eckler are gonna be where you want them to be tonight. Yep, Eckler and Mixon. Okay. I got to the defense question, so now I'm at PPR, one running back, ETN, Moss, Brees, or Achan. Brees. Brees Hall. I think he's practicing on a limited fashion this week. Not that it matters. He didn't practice last week, and he still delivered a massive performance. Um, Brees Hall is just, he's awesome. That's it. It's not like it's a middle of the pack matchup by the numbers. The Dolphins are okay against running backs. They're not, they're not great. They're a little bit better than average, but they're not a shutdown unit. Um, Moss is going to get plenty of volume again, but the production hasn't quite. We haven't seen the results in the games that he has started without Jonathan Taylor. Achan hasn't practiced this week, so I don't know what his availability is going to be. He could miss another game. He's got this toe injury, so Achan is probably off. He's off the list right now. It's between Hall or ETN. ETN has had a stellar season. He has. But it's a much tougher matchup. This is where, the matchup comes more into play. The Ravens are they are a bottom 5 matchup for opposing running backs. On the season, they're giving up the 8th fewest points to opposing running backs. In the last 4 weeks, they're giving up the 5th fewest in default, average scoring. ETN is spectacular, but if you can only pick one, I'm going Brees here. I'm going Brees. Achan's off the board with back-to-back missed practices. Browns or Cowboys defense? If Denzel Ward is back, then I think I would go Cleveland. And we have until Sunday to sort these defenses out. And again, I will be live again on Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, both days. Got to start early on Saturday because there's football on Saturday. There's games to work through to get through. So I will be live over the weekend. So tune in then if you want any last minute thoughts as it pertains to your start sit questions or options. So we can confirm certain details, like, is Denzel Ward active? Is he going to return for the Browns? Is that 100% guaranteed? If it is, I would probably feel better slightly about the Browns at home against Chicago than I do about the Cowboys on the road against Josh Allen. Yeah, so for today, I'll say the Browns. Start 2, half PPR. Higgins, Godwin, Quentin Johnston tonight. Oh, man. I think Godwin has missed back-to-back practices, hasn't he? He has. Godwin has missed back-to-back practices with a knee injury. Again, I mean, if Godwin gets a limited practice in on Friday, then great. But I think right now, if Quentin Johnston is your best alternative, I mean, I don't know. Is Demario Douglas out there? I assume Noah Brown is already taken. I don't know. Is Brandon Cook still out there? Is Curtis Samuel? Curtis Samuel's probably taken too. Like, any other wide receivers? I doubt Jackson Smith and Jigba or Josh Downs or are any of these other guys available on waivers? If they're not, then you have to play Quentin Johnston tonight because we can't operate as if Chris Godwin is going to be available. He's missed back-to-back practices. That's typically a bad sign for a player's availability. He might get a limited practice in tomorrow, and that would put him on track to play, but you're playing with fire if if that doesn't work out. I think if you don't have like a Brandon Cooks or who else could be potentially on waivers? Demario, yeah, like I said, Demario Douglas, Elijah Moore, Jalen Hyatt. Like, are any other alternatives so you could wait out Chris Godwin? If not, if the answer to all those names is no, then you got to play Quentin Johnston tonight. And then you got to play T. Higgins as well because Godwin is, again, trending toward missing the game. Trey McBride or Isaiah Likely. Can you play both? Can you play both of those guys? I don't know who's in your flex. That's probably a better option than low end tight end one options, but Likely has a beautiful matchup against Jacksonville. They're giving up a ton of points to opposing tight ends, but I prefer McBride straight up. I guess I would say McBride by a hair. It's not, and it's close, but I would, if I had to pick one, I would probably play McBride. I want to play Isaiah Likely if I can, um, but I would slightly lean McBride. I like his usage. I like his volume. Um, I guess, is Michael Wilson back this week? That might hurt. Maybe that hurts Trey McBride a little bit. He's limited in practice. That might hurt him a little bit, but he's been so rock solid. I mean, Likely popped last week as well, which is great. But I would give the slight nod to McBride, who we have a little bit more to go off of, a little bit more of a sample size of consistency. Likely just hasn't had the opportunity yet. He did it last week, which is great. I would give and I want to play him if I can, but if I've got somebody like Trey McBride, I'd rather play McBride. The odds that Aaron Jones plays this week appear to be positive. They appear to be trending in the right direction. Jones told reporters he has a good feeling about his availability this week. And A.J. Dillon apparently broke his thumb against the Giants on Monday night. He has missed back-to-back practices. So Aaron Jones could be viable this week if he's able to return. It's just hard to endorse him because we haven't really seen him this year. And certainly not recently. He's only had a couple of RB1 performances. One was all the way back in week 1. So Aaron Jones is on the RB3 radar. Maybe low end RB2. But it does sound like he's going to return. Would I go Lockett or Sutton, Crumbly Heads? Probably Sutton. Lockett's got a good matchup, but Sutton has just been better. Sutton, he's just been better. I'll go with the better play or with the better. I mean, this year, maybe not for the careers, Lockett has been the better player, but for this year, Sutton has been the better player. I'll go Sutton. Sutton and your 2 running backs. Stroud, Murray, and Flacco. Yes, you should run Flacco and Murray. I would not play. I don't think I would play Mullins. I don't think I would play Mullins over Flacco. Flacco has tossed it 45 times in each of his 2 starts for the Browns, or maybe one of those was 44 pass attempts. I think he's got 44 and 45 pass attempts in his 2 starts. Certainly, I'm firing up Kyler. And then I think I slightly give the nod to Flacco over Mullins because of the matchup. Bears have been stingier against quarterback play of late. Um, but it looks like Flacco's going to have Amari Cooper for this game. He practiced in full today. And Njoku has been a steady contributor with Flacco. He has Elijah Moore. He's got Jerome Ford. He's got Kareem Hunt. I think that's where I would go slightly. Mullins has a good collection of talent too. Actually, it's a better collection of talent. Jefferson, Hawkinson, Addison. And it's a good matchup for against the Bengals are a more favorable matchup. I don't we haven't I've seen Joe Flacco and he's been around the block. Nothing's going to phase him at this point anymore. He's a 38-year-old vet who has done and seen it all. I mean, Mullins is more of a career backup. This is a great spot for him. This is a great opportunity for him. I think I just slightly prefer Flacco. And yes to all of them over Trubisky. So yeah, Murray and Flacco is where I would go. You're starting AJ, you're starting Jaden Reed. That's good. If you want to weigh down on Aaron Jones, then you could sit Quentin Johnston tonight. But I think you have to be prepared as if you're not going to have Chris Godwin. I don't think it's Aaron Jones. It sounds like Aaron Jones is going to return this week. It's not super optimistic right now about Chris Godwin. It looks like he might miss this week, but it looks like Jones will return. So if that helps, if you can play Aaron Jones and T. Higgins, I would plan to do that. But if Aaron Jones is out, I guess I would want to know who else is on your wire that you could pick up and play if you decide to bench Quentin Johnston tonight. So these are the hoops that we have to jump through. Terry McLaurin or Zamir White. Man. McLaurin. I guess McLaurin. I don't. McLaurin has been disappointing this year. It doesn't make sense with how much the Commanders are throwing the football. They're so bad on defense that they have to throw the ball to try to stay in games. So you would think McLaurin would be a benefactor of that, but the numbers haven't been there. That being said, McLaurin, I think I have to give the slightest of nods to McLaurin over Zamir White. If it's half PPR, if it's full PPR, McLaurin. If it's half PPR, I guess there's a little bit more of an argument for Zamir White. I can't sit here and expect that Zamir White does anything other than an RB3 performance. He's going to get an opportunity tonight, and that's great. But he's not a regular contributor to the offense when Josh Jacobs is healthy. He doesn't even have like a change of pace role. So I have a hard time feeling good about Zamir White tonight. McLaurin hasn't been great this year, but he is a regular starter and he'll be on the field for every snap at the very least. I gotta go McLaurin. He's frustrating, but I would go McLaurin. Raiders or Browns. So the Raiders are an aggressive play. The Raiders defense is an aggressive play if you feel like you need to go all or nothing. The Browns are the much better unit, and they have a good matchup at home. Justin Fields is obviously a tougher matchup for a defense than Easton Stick is. So this is kind of like a gut call. If you are looking at this on paper and thinking to yourself, Easton Stick, whatever, no Justin Herbert, no Keenan Allen, it's Austin Eckler and a bunch of guys, Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, Gerald Everett, all that. The Raiders might make them, they might have some opportunities for some plays and at home on the short week. This could be a gross game. Mistakes get made by bad offensive play. So the defense takes advantage. Sure, I can see that. I can see that mindset. I can see that playing out. The Browns are just better. That's I think where I would go personally. Actually, I can tell you, I'll tell you right now, there are certain situations where there's a league where I have the opportunity to pick up the Raiders right now, and I have the Browns defense. I haven't done it. I'm playing the Browns defense. So I guess that's my best answer to your question. I am playing the Browns in an opportunity where I could play the Raiders. The Raiders could come through, but it's an aggressive play. The Browns are rock solid. They're at home in a good matchup, and they might be getting Denzel Ward back, which would make them even better. I am leaning the Browns. The Raiders are in a good spot, but in a must-win situation, I'll take the better unit. I'll take the better defense, and the Browns are a better defense than the Raiders. That's where I would go. If you're a big underdog and you feel like you need to take a home run swing, you could do that with the Raiders, but I would say even in a matchup where they probably won't give up a lot of points, I would say their floor is lower than the Browns. Although there might not be a lot of points scored in this game tonight. I would still go with Cleveland. They haven't been as dominant as they were in the middle of the season, but they still have Myles Garrett. They're getting Denzel Ward back. It's a good matchup. And yeah, I like Brees. I'm not worried about the Dolphins. Don't scare me as a matchup. They haven't done anything to warrant being worried about. Yes, Brees Hall is a top 5 play at running back this week. The Jets have been playing better on offense recently. They scored 27, 30 points against the Texans. I forget what it was. Doesn't matter. Brees Hall had a huge day. Now they get to go play in Miami. Yeah. Yeah. Brees Hall's a must start this week. Yeah. If you have the Cowboys defense and you're going to play them and you want to, keep the running back against them that's fine. You can do that. The Cowboys are definitely a dicey option this week going against Josh Allen on the road, but they're still probably the most talented option that you have available to you, and talent wins out. And for me, unless it's an extreme situation, talent wins out for me at this time of the year. And then, yes, I knew that the Raiders are going to be a trendy, popular pick tonight to fire up as a stream. Again, that's fine. Like, it's not a bad play, but there's more built-in. For me, there's some built-in risk because they are just not a shutdown unit. Now, you don't need to be, or they're not a dominant unit. You don't need to be to have a good defensive performance against a bad offense. I get why the Raiders are a good play, and they're at home, short week. The Chargers are probably coming in with a basic ass game plan. They haven't had much time to prepare. They haven't had much time to get Easton Stick ready for this start. It's enticing to want to play the Raiders. For me, at this point of the season, if I've got a stud unit like the Browns, like the Ravens, like the Chiefs, I want to play the defense that helped get me here. Like the 49ers. The 49ers are on the road against Arizona. Kyler's back, so that's not as, that doesn't look as like shut down or as dominant or positive as it could be, but it's still a winnable matchup for the 49ers. We expect them to win that game. And when you win that game, when you are winning a game, when you have a lead in a game, you increase the likelihood that your defense can play aggressive, tee off, get sacks, force turnovers. The 49ers are a dominant unit. Yes, it's a tougher spot on the road for them. I would go with the 49ers. I know that the Raiders are trendy. Raiders are an interesting play. They should do fine tonight. They should. They should do fine tonight. Um, but if I've got a defense that I'm not streaming defenses. I've started this defense most weeks, and I've started them with confidence, and they've, for the most part, come through. That's the defense I want to play. That's the defense I want to play. They've got 3 sacks in their they've got at least 3 sacks in their last 6 games. The 49ers do. They forced at least 2 turnovers in 5 of those 6 games. Like, yeah, I want to play the 49ers. I want to play my defense that is a stud defense that helped get me here. I want to play those teams over the Raiders. If the Raiders do well tonight, so be it. I want to play, if I have a stud unit, I want to play that stud unit. Browns, Chiefs, Ravens, 49ers, the defenses that got you here, helped get you here. I want to play those defenses. So the 49ers for sure. Of those defenses, I mean, the best defense is the 49ers. I want to the talent wins out for me here. I think I'm not concerned about the fact that they're on the road here. They're playing an inferior opponent. Yes, Kyler is back, so that could make this a little bit more of a competitive game. But the 49ers are better than the Arizona Cardinals. You expect them to handle their business. Yes, it's a division game. Division games can be weirder and more random than non-division games. I'll take the 49ers. Again, 3 or more sacks in 6 straight games. At least 2 turnovers in 5 of their last 6 games. This is a shutdown unit. If you can play the San Francisco 49ers, I would play the San Francisco 49ers. That's the defense I want to play. They have playmakers at every level, and the proof is in the numbers. The proof is in the pudding the last 6 or 7 weeks. Yeah. I'll take the talent. The Falcons are super enticing this week because they're playing Carolina. I will say that. Play any defense against the Carolina Panthers. That's been the MO for at least the past 5 or 6 weeks. For me, I think I still want to play San Francisco. Chuba or Ty Chandler? Chandler obviously gets his a potentially expanded opportunity in a good matchup against Cincinnati. Chuba is playing. They're at home against the Falcons. Slightly tougher matchup by the numbers. Uh, might roll the dice on Chandler here over Chuba. Chuba's getting a lot of Chuba's getting a lot of opportunities. Chuba's getting a lot of opportunities, but Miles Sanders does mix in or has mixed in a little bit. Chandler should probably get most of the work with Alexander Madison out for this game. Chuba's at home. Chandler's on the road. Chandler has the slightly more favorable matchup. Atlanta hasn't allowed a rushing touchdown this year. That's noteworthy. I think I give the slight nod to Chandler. I think I give the slight nod to Chandler over Chuba. And the 49ers injury report is lengthy. Like Dre Greenlaw is not practicing. Javon Hargrave didn't practice. So they could be missing some pieces. I guess that makes them a little less enticing. Javarius Ward is also not practicing. There's a lot of there's a lot of guys that they could be down in this game. I guess that makes them a little less enticing. I guess I would say that's enough to put maybe a team like the Falcons, a defense like the Falcons over the 49ers because of the matchup. The Panthers have been so giving to opposing defenses all season long. Yeah, I'll say the Falcons. I'll say the Falcons. Thank you for bringing bringing that up. The 49ers are banged up on defense. So I guess they come down a peg. Maybe not more than the Raiders. I still like the talent that the 49ers have as a whole. They still have pretty strong depth. But with the Falcons playing the Carolina Panthers, Falcons have a decent defense, and you don't even really need that good of a defense to come through against Carolina. I guess I will flip-flop a little bit, and I'll say the Falcons are a top option this week against Carolina. You can pick up dubs. I guess I would keep Marquise Brown in. The Cardinals are going to be throwing against the 49ers, and if they're banged up, that's a break for Marquise Brown. And Odell's been solid lately. Odell's been solid lately. I think I would just fire those two guys up. Yeah, Odell's been coming on recently. Yeah. He's got a touchdown in 3 of his past 5 games. $97 receiving yards last week. He went over 100 in week 11. So Odell's rounded into 4. I guess I would play those guys over dubs. Keep those guys that you have. Keep those guys that you have. This is a DFS slip. I mean, Eckler has to be the captain. Yeah, I think this makes sense. O'Connell is the quarterback I would rather have. I do think that his volume is a little bit more likely that to fill out than Easton Stick, especially because O'Connell has Devontae Adams to throw the football to, and Stick has Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston, and not on the same level. Eckler makes sense as the captain. It's fine. It's good to Adams and Eckler are pretty much they have the only problem with Eckler and Adams is if one doesn't deliver, they're going to be on everybody's slip. Um, but they are the two clear cut, obvious. Like there's a significant drop off in talent between those two guys as far as who's playing in this game. I'm not crazy about Zamir White, but obviously he will get his crack at a starting opportunity tonight. So we'll see how he does. I guess if you go with O'Connell, like you might be able to. I don't know. The better play might be Abdullah. Might be a little bit more contrarian. It might be a little bit more contrarian to go Abdullah over Zamir White, especially if you have O'Connell. You can stack the two. And on the on the off chance that the Chargers take a lead, that probably helps Abdullah, like from a usage perspective, more than it helps Zamir. Something to think about. I might consider Abdullah over Zamir White. Everything else looks good. I don't know if Renfro costs more or less than Josh Palmer with his first game back, but I assume he's maybe a little pricier because he might be the top receiver tonight. So, looks good. Looks fine to me. Eckler over Ty Chandler. Yes, I think you just have to. Yeah, you have to go with the talent. I mean, if anything else, Easton Stick should just dump the ball off to Eckler as many times as he possibly can. I don't think you can sit. I don't think you could sit Eckler for Ty Chandler even in these circumstances. I think you have to go. You have to go Eckler. You have to go Eckler. Ferguson or Goddard? Both are in good spots. Decent matchup for both. Well, slightly better matchup for Goddard by the numbers going up against Seattle. I guess I would say Goddard. It's close. Tight ends are, as you know, very volatile. Goddard got okay usage last week in his first game back. 4 catches, 30 yards. Like, very okay. But he played 84% of the snaps. So that's good. Ferguson, 5 for 72. So better. Of course, the Eagles are not good at linebackers. So they're, any tight end is a good start against them. I think I would give the slight nod. Goddard has struggled this year. He hasn't been consistently good. Ferguson, I think, has had more stronger weeks than Goddard has this year. But the matchup, the situation the Eagles are in against the Seahawks, I'll give the slight nod to Goddard here over Ferguson. It's close, but I'll say Goddard. I'll give the slight nod to Goddard. Palmer or Pickens? No, I didn't get this specifically, but I guess I would probably go Palmer. Pickens is the better player, but Pickens' numbers have cratered out. This Steelers offense is lame, is boring, is not very good. And since Deontay Johnson came back from injury, Pickens has not been good. 5 catches for 19 yards last week. It was a bad matchup against New England. This is a better matchup against the Colts, but Trubisky seems to have eyes just for Deontay. Although Pickens did get 6 targets last week, turned it into 19 yards. So, you know, not great. It's a slightly better matchup for Palmer. He could be limited. Remember, he's coming back from injury, so he could be limited. Ugh. I guess Palmer. Pickens just since Deontay returned, Pickens has not been good. But they might need Palmer, or the Chargers need Palmer tonight, so maybe he plays more than they would actually want to play him. Given the circumstances, they might have to play him more than they want to out of necessity. I think I would go Palmer. I think I got everybody. Starting likely over Komet. Yep, I'm good with that. That's fine. Sorry, missed that a little earlier. I think I got everybody. So we are at the end of the chat with about 30 minutes to go until the game. Man, this could be a real snooze fest. But we said that last week with 2 backup quarterbacks, and it delivered a half decent game. Let's see if the Chargers and the Raiders can do the same. I think I'm going to shut this down with about 30 minutes to go before kickoff. I'm at the end of the chat. Again, one more time, if you guys need any more start-sit help, there is Saturday football this week, so I'm going to start at 11 a.m. on Saturday instead of 3 p.m. So if you need any last minute or last hour thoughts or final thoughts prior to kickoff, I'll be live then. And then, of course, Sunday at 11 a.m., like I usually am, I'll be live before the full Sunday slate as well. But that'll do it for me this evening. Best of luck for the start of your playoff matchup. Hopefully things go your way. And I will see you guys on Saturday morning ahead of the triple header that'll be taking place the rest of that day. Have a good evening, everybody, and I'll see you this weekend. Good luck.